Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how the message is changed by the medium? I liked your analogies with the artists and musicians and the idea that music is different, and I'm particularly interested in news, but other issues too. When there's such immediacy, I mean, there's no editing, there's no contemplation. I mean, there's no editing literally, but also figuratively in the sense of just thinking about that for a while and then pushing send.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the great examples in news is that, you know, that news was fairly linear. News writing was fairly linear until the telegraph. And the telegraph comes in, that's where you get the pyramid structure of the most important things in the first paragraph, which is actually a breakdown of straightforward linearity, and linearity is the bias of writing. Writing gets us, for the first time in human history, to think in terms of a straight line and to go, you know, A, B, C, D, you know, word by word, line by line. It instills that. And in fact, it's been shown that once writing was introduced in the ancient world, people also started to line up their art. You know, so that little pictures would be put into a straight line, where before they were just a kind of jumble. And people did the same thing with architecture. I mean, here we're seeing, in this room, it shows some of the modern elements. I'm retrieving some older elements with some circular kind of qualities, but most of our architecture historically has followed the look of the line, you know, of the written word, in creating lines and right angles. They're pages. This is a page, right? This is a page. You're all lined up like lines. I mean, the traditional classroom setting, although it curves around a bit, but I mean, the students lined up in rows like lines on a page for the teacher to read. So, I mean, that totally reworked us. And then the telegraph comes in, and boom, news writing suddenly becomes something completely different. I mean, it's actually an extraordinary alteration when you think about it, and it also changes the look of the front page. Well, this is all McLuhan's point. I'm not, you know, I don't want to take credit for it, but that the newspaper takes on the look that we become familiar with of the mosaic look, where, I mean, after all, there's no way to read a newspaper from cover to cover, the way we might a book or even a magazine read it from cover to cover. A newspaper is kind of hypertextual, you know, in a way, because all the articles on the front page continue somewhere else. And I've always had that issue. I mean, I have this like linearity that I've internalized. I have a hard time when I'm reading the front page, going to page 8, I want to go to the next article and wait until I get to page 8 to pick up that other article. But I mean, there's no one way to read a newspaper, where there is one way that you read a book, you know, or at least one way that you're supposed to read a book. So the newspaper already was altered dramatically by the first electronic medium, the telegraph. And it continues to be, our news writing continues to be altered. You know, obviously, when you're writing then for newscasting, then you have to dramatically shorten the news report and write it for an acoustic quality, for acoustic situation. And writing on the web also requires a kind of shorter, people sort of scan the web. They don't always, often don't talk about reading something on the web. We look at things, we kind of jump around. So it's even more oriented towards headlines and small bits of information. When you look at anything on the web and you see a long line of text, I mean, most people won't read it. So again, to adjust, to accommodate, something like Salon, and Camille Paglia wrote a piece about this for an anthology I did, Communication in Cyberspace, where she talked about writing for Salon magazine, which is an online magazine. You think you're taking a magazine, you're putting it online, you're going to do the same things that you would do otherwise, but no, not at all. You have to adjust your your thinking, and one of the adjustments was to write shorter paragraphs with, you know, a lot of sort of headline sentences that grab the reader's attention. Of course, the other thing is links. You got to have links when you're writing online. You know, it's the hypertextual medium. So if you're not including links, then you're not using the medium, and you're not appealing. So I mean, and that changes your whole frame, your way of thinking as well. So you know, again, I mean, it's a mistake to think, and I think some people are thinking today that what was the paper in Seattle that's gone online?
The Post-Intelligencer.
Okay, the Post-Intelligencer. They think you can just take the paper that you had before, put it online, and all you're doing is changing the delivery system, everything remains the same. No way. It's going to be a completely different thing. And it probably won't survive in that form unless they radically adjust what they're doing. You can't do that. It's just going to alter things too much. And typically, when you try to do the same thing, you get a really bad result. That's why we're videotaping this. I mean, one of the worst things to watch on video is a lecture. And it's like you can tolerate it. I applaud you all for your toleration of me. You can tolerate somebody speaking for 40 minutes. In this, you know, in a live situation, it's very hard to watch it on videotape, right? To watch it on television. It's bad television, right? You ever see any religious services that are just on television? Right? I mean, they just like set up a camera in a church and then just show it, and it's terrible. It's awful. Because churches are set up to be there, and it's a medium that's constructed to appeal to people in person, in that place, and putting it on television, it just doesn't translate. In the same way that no one can read a newspaper article on radio and make it sound like, and make it appealing. You have to rewrite it. You have to change the message to adjust to the medium if you want to be successful. That's what we mean by the bias. The medium has a bias. You can ignore that bias. You can do whatever you want, but ignoring that bias means that you, in turn, will be ignored. Yes?
Yes, you said that cultures are formed within media, and I want to know, do you feel that certain new technological mediums bear some responsibility in modifying what is developing cultures? Because as I see it now, we are a fast generation, everything has to be fast. And we developed that, I believe, from mediums such as fast food, going through drive-in,
Absolutely, yeah.
downloading music from the internet, you know, not buy CDs anymore, just download the song. Just the fast generation, I think, do you feel that bears new technological mediums being developed as of today, bear many responsibility in modifying cultures normally developed within certain mediums that didn't somewhat include what is now developed today?
If I understand you correctly, I mean, absolutely, speed is part of this. And again, you can go back to understanding medium, and that's something that McLuhan talks about over and over again, the speeding up. That by speeding things up, that alone just changes things dramatically. I mean, it's one of a multitude of factors, because, you know, there's also going to audio-visual formats, and I mean, there's a number of different elements going on. Electricity is decentralizing. You don't have to go to a central place. It comes to you. So there are a bunch of different factors, but speed is a very important one, and you can see how that then alters who we are and how we behave.